Cheerio. Hello. My name is Adam Kreisel. I'm the chef owner of Caille Catering and a board member for Slow Food Utah. The fabulous human next to me is my good friend, local bon vivant, and the proprietor owner of Libation Wine and Beverages, Francis Fecto. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Buona giornata. We are just bibbidi bobbidi boo. We are describing right now, Francis, the wine pairings to go with Billy Sotelo's menu from Caille. They're offering for this year's Feast of the Five Senses, our Slow Food Micro Grant Fund fundraiser. This is a take-home fine dining menu that you get to enjoy in the comfort of your own home. You may or may not choose, but we encourage you to choose to enjoy it dressed as though you were attending a fine dining restaurant. As a result, I pulled out one of my evening gowns for the occasion. I see that you are wearing a shirt that has both a collar and has pants attached to it.
And it's actually a good speed suit, right?
Amazing. Yes. So Billy's menu offering is a lovely...
You don't quite have a Caille cleavage going though.
I've given up the French bustiers. I prefer something a little bit more elegant, a little bit more subtle for my long corpo.
Yeah.
Billy's offering this year starts off with a lovely fresh salad with greens, I believe, from Blue Spring Farm with a basil vinaigrette. That is Randy and Tamara Head, correct. The second course is a braised mussel dish with an heirloom tomato and chorizo broth. He's following that with a dry-aged New York steak paired with some porcini mushrooms and potato pave, and then a fresh fruit and vanilla cream tartlet to finish. You have chosen these wines to pair with that menu. Tell people why these specifically.
Well, I hate to give a double dip to a wine, but if I'm going to give a double dip to anybody, I'm going to give it to Will Buckland. This guy's an extraordinary farmer, oversees a patch of land called Old Hill Ranch, which has 14 acres with 32 different grape varieties interplanted. And so this rosé comes from the Bambino spot, which is young rootstock with old vine cuttings next to it. And so what happens is he picks this a little early, gives it a squeeze in the press, lets it get stained a little bit, and so it's low alcohol, so very high, refreshing, very sharp, but it's got a little rich juiciness to it that'll be a really nice complement with the broth. He makes about 250 cases a year. Utah drinks 200 of them, and we get it at small winery discounts, so it's a screaming deal in Utah. It's about $20. Brilliant wine. Every February, this is my first sign that winter is over when it arrives in the state stores. This one, on the other hand, you know, when you have steak, it's easy to go, oh, I got to do cab or some big high alcohol, stupid, flabby monster, red wine, blah, 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 blah. Well, one of the best steaks I've ever had was in Tuscany, and what they served to me with it was Chianti. This one in particular is a very old, venerable family estate owned by the Gentini family called Trattoria Selvapiana, and they're not part of Chianti Classico. They're in a warmer area called Chianti Rufina, and so the wines tend to be a little bigger, a little richer, and the 2019s are such a generous vintage. Biodynamic farmers, minimal oak usage at all. It's pretty much a focus on transparent fruit, and so you get great extract and tannin down the center of the palate. This stuff just sings on the palate, and it's a great complement with meat.
When you say a generous vintage, what do you mean by that?
Well, personally, I think the notion of good vintage, bad vintage is, pardon the expression, bullshit, you know what I mean? Because when I talk to people about good vintage, bad vintage, they think good vintage is up here, bad vintage is down here. Whereas if I put 10 vintages of your favorite one in front of you and I said pick out the bad ones, you'd be hard pressed to do it. When I say generous vintage, generally speaking, I mean warm, sunny, nothing horrible happened, and so what you got was a big, ripe, juicy wine.
Gotcha.
One of the most eye-opening things I'd ever had happen to me when it comes to the subject of vintage was a winemaker said to me, sometimes time will bring what the sun does not. Because for years, I would get wine magazines telling me, terrible vintage, and it's in August, and I'm like, the wine's not even in the bottle, how do you know? Because it needs a little time to come around. But it was an expansive thing for my own personal brain. But when I say generous vintage, I mean sunny disposition, sunny Tuscan disposition at that. This is big, rich, beautiful. I would suggest you put it in your favorite Pinot Noir glass. That is a big round bulb, because it'll show off and it'll be a perfect complement with the meat.
Well, I personally enjoy your personal brain. I like the fact that you use your personal brain to provide these wine pairings for our guests for the Feast of Five. And I hope, as I know do you, that everyone has a lovely time with their tasting from Caille. Buon appetito. Thank you very much for supporting Slow Food and the Micro Grant Fund through the Feast of the Five Senses. We hope you have a lovely evening.
And thanks again for supporting small farmers and good agriculture when it comes to what's in your glass. If you care about what's on your plate, you should care about what's in your glass just as much.
Indeed you do.